Hello soulmate, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time of seeing my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for watching. So in this tutorial, we're going to be learning how to make this top, which has a stylish square neckline and a pleated chest design. If this is what you're interested in, please join me while we get started. Okay, so on your pattern paper, you're just going to go ahead and draw a straight line at the top. That will be a starting line, and you can also draw a straight line at the side, which we're going to be starting all our measurements from. So from the straight line at the top, I'm going to go ahead and mark my bust, shoulder to bust, that is 10.5. I'm going to go ahead and also mark the shoulder to under bust, which I'm using 14 inches, shoulder to waist 17 inches, and then shoulder to the hip, that's 25 inches. So actually the waist to hip is 8 inches, so I'm just going ahead and mark waist to hip 8 inches there. Okay, so I'll just repeat it and then draw a straight line across them. So after drawing this straight line, I'm going to go ahead and label them: the bust point, the under bust, the waist, and the hip. Okay, so after that, I'm going to come to the shoulder line, that is the starting line at the top. I'm going to come back to that line and I'm going to be marking my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is, I'm working with 15 inches, divided by 2 is 7.5. So from there, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and then from that 1 inch, I'm going to mark 7.5. Okay, how I got this is my armhole depth, and how I got this is that I divided my bust circumference of 36 by 6 and I added 1.5. Okay, so I marked it there and I drew a straight line, which became my chest line. So on that chest line, I marked the shoulder measurement divided by 2 again, and I connected it to that point where I came down by 1 inch. So now I'm marking my neck width of 3 inches width and 3 inches depth, and I'm going to connect from that 3 inches width to the 1 inch I came down from that shoulder, that is for my shoulder slope. And then I'm going to also go ahead and connect this curve for the neck design there. So that's a normal neck, and we're going to be drawing the actual neck design we want. So I'm just going to get my armhole curve where I took the midpoint of the armhole depth, marked it, and I came in by 0.5 from there. And then I also marked my bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line and connected them together with the curve. So if you've been watching my previous tutorial, you'll be very familiar with this. So now I'm going to mark my bust span measurement on the bust line down to the hip line. So the bust span measurement is same thing as the nipple to nipple measurement, and I'm working with 8 inches. Dividing it by 2 is 4 inches, so I mark that 4 inches from the bust point down to the hip point, and I'm connecting it with a straight line like this. Okay, so you're just going to come to the under bust area. Take note that it's the under bust area. We're going to be marking 0.75 on the side towards the center front and 1.25 towards the side. So if you're a plus size, you can mark 1 inch from the side towards the center front and 1.5 towards the side. Okay, so after that, I'm going to mark the same thing on the hip area and I'm going to connect them together. This is just to help get the under bust tightening. So from the bust line, I came down by 0.75, and I'm going to be connecting from that point to the under bust where I marked earlier, just like this. So place your curve properly. I'm trying to do that, and then I'm going to go ahead and connect them together. Okay, after doing that, I'm just indicating these areas that we are going to be cutting out. Okay, so we are going to be doing a princess dart. Yes, this top is going to be having a princess dart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the measurement of the armhole curve. So you can just do it exactly the way I'm doing it to get it right, and then take the midpoint of it, then mark it on that armhole curve there. You're just going to mark the midpoint there, and then after marking it, you're going to take your curved ruler and connect it to meet the bust point, that is the bust span line you drew earlier. So you're just going to smoothen it to avoid any form of sharp edges. Okay, so after that, I'm going to come to the armhole area where I marked, and I'm going to come down by half an inch and also take half an inch at the top. So I'm taking half an inch on both sides and I'm connecting them together to meet the line that I drew earlier, that is to meet the bust line, that's the bust span line. So now the dart intake of 1 inch which I took from that place, I'm going to extend it from the lower dart line, and then from there I'm going to mark that 1 inch on the armhole on the chest line. Then I'm going to connect them together with a curve, so that becomes the new armhole curve we are going to be using. We're not going to be working with the previous ones. So you can see I've indicated that we're going to be cutting that place out. So now I'm just trying to impute my body measurement. So I'm just going to take my bust circumference divided by 4 impute it, the waist circumference divided by 4, impute it on the bust and then the hip. So I'm working with a hip measurement of 39 inches. I'm working with a waist measurement of 28, on the bust 29, and the bust measurement of 36. So I just went ahead to mark a temporal line there because we're going to be also adding a dart to this. So what I did is that I'm adding my bust dart. I came down by 1.5 inches from the bust line, which is the difference between the shoulder to waist at the front and shoulder to waist at the back. So shoulder to waist at the back front, I'm working with 17 inches, and for the back I'm working with 15.5. Okay, so after that I connected them together. So I'm taking the waist measurements, the midpoint of what I have from the waist line there, that is from the dart to the side of the waist. I took the midpoint and I marked it, and I did the same thing for the hip area, and I'm connecting it like this. So you can see the lines are not equal. That's because the hip is wider than the waist. Okay, so after connecting them from the waist area, I'm going to connect it, like I'm going to take that line up to the chest line area. Okay, so after doing that, I'm going to come to that line and mark 0.25 on both sides. So if you're a plus size, you can use 0.5 or 0.75, whichever one you want to use is okay. So I'm using 0.25 and I'm going to connect it to meet the chest line at the top, and from the waist I came down by 4 inches, and I'm also connecting them to meet each other like this. So I'm just extending the lines to make it very visible for us. So that's also going to be a dart which we are going to be taking off. Okay, so now that half an inch dart intake there, I went ahead to add it at the waistline, and now I can now draw the lines well. So I'm making them very visible because this is the actual line. Okay, so after this, I'm just going to extend the bust dart, imputing the measurement properly and extending it well so that I can close it and I can also make use of it when I want to cut it out. Okay, so I'm trying to close the bust dart because I know it's going to affect the darts that I took there earlier. So for me to get a straight line for the dart so that when I'm cutting it, it doesn't give me issue, I'm just going to go ahead and close the bust dart like that, securing it with my tape. And I'm going to go ahead and use my ruler to align this line properly so that when I'm cutting them, I can actually cut it well. So after that, I'll just open up the bust dart. Okay, so mate, so now we're going to be getting the square neckline design we have at the neck area and the pleated chest line we had earlier. We had at the top already. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to come from that shoulder line that we marked the width of 3 inches. We're going to come down by 5 inches. This is just like an over bust line. Okay, so that is where the neck design is going to stop. So I'm going to come down by 5 inches from there, and from that line I'm going to mark 4 inches. Remember, the neck width we used was 3 inches. It's just like adding 1 inch to it to make it 4 inches so that it's not entirely straight. So I know it's not very visible now, but I'm going to be using my marker to make it visible for us. So we're going to be extending that line to meet at that bust, at that dart we drew at the bust area. That is the dart we took from the waist straight up to the chest line. You can see what I'm doing. So because that place has a kind of stylish curve and my curve is not able to do that, I'm just going to use my free hand to do it. So you can use your free hand, you just have to be careful. So remember, we have a dart at that side. For it to have a straight line, the best thing to do is just close the dart so that you can get the actual line, so that when you cut it, it becomes equal. So you can see I just use my free hand to get that curve design there, and I'm going to be using my ruler to, extend it properly and also make this other part to be very visible. So the reason why I'm shaping that side is because it has a curve shape, it's not entirely pointy. Okay, so it means that we're going to be working with this part, and I'll also make this part very visible for us to know, so that this is the part we are going to be cutting out. Okay, this entire part here. So after getting this neck design, I'm going to come down to the hem area to determine the hem. So what I'm going to do is, from the waistline, I'm going to come down by 3 inches, and then towards the first dart line, I'm going to mark 6 inches there, and I'm going to be connecting it to that 3 inches. Okay, just like I'm doing right now. So it's optional. You can use 4 inches, you can use 2 inches, it's up to you. I'm also smoothing that place because it's not entirely pointy, it has a curve there, and this is the areas where we are going to be having the button. I'm just doing this to indicate it. So that 6 inches we mark, we're going to mark it on the other side of the dart, and to best get this, we're just going to close that dart. Okay, and then mark it from there. So then from the side of the waist, I came down by 5 inches, and I'm connecting it to that point that we marked earlier, as you can see. So after doing this, we have actually gotten the hem design that we want from that place, and then we are good. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out. Okay, so mate, at this point, if you find this tutorial very helpful, please ensure to give us a thumbs up, like, comment, share our video, and subscribe to our channel so you can be notified when we upload new videos. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this out, and I will advise you watch me as I cut it carefully. Okay, so because of this neck design that we have here, which are supposed to cut separately, and I do not want us to get confused, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to close my bust dart, and then I'm going to place it properly there and secure it with a tape. Then after securing it very well with the tape, I'm going to open the bust dart. I'm doing this because I don't want us to be confused. I want us to understand how this is going to be. So for me to get this right, I'm just going to come towards the side and start cutting, and I'll open the bust dart to make it easy for us to see the lines, okay, the bust line that we are cutting from. So then from there, I'm going to cut out the shape of that chest design that we have at the top of this dress, of this top rather, and then we're going to cut it out like this. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone ahead to cut out this part of the top, and then I remove the dart, and I'm going to also go ahead and place it properly with securing it with the tape so that it can be firm. As you can see, we already have that design. I'm just going to cut this other part of it out as well. So this is the part where we'll be having that white pleated design at the top of the dress. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut the other part of the dress like this. Okay, so as you can see, I'm cutting out the bust dart. I'm cutting it out, and I'm going to be securing it with my tape. So please watch me carefully as I'm doing it so that you get it right, because it's a bit confusing, but if you watch carefully, you get it right. So just follow the same procedure I'm doing, how I cut it and how I'm joining it, so that you will get yours properly well. Okay, so it's a bit complicated, but if you focus very well, you get it right. Okay, so just follow the process. You can see it's already beginning to have the shape. Okay. Okay guys, so I'm done cutting out this pattern. As you can see, I'm just going to go and label it center front, side front 1, and side front 2. So now I'm going to be moving to the back pattern of this dress. I've gone ahead to mark the horizontal and vertical lines, and for the vertical side I left about 1.5 inches, which I'll be using for my zipper spacing. So I'm using a bust measurement, sorry, the shoulder to bust of 10.5, and my shoulder to waist is 15.5. Remember we said that the shoulder to waist at the back is different from that of the front. So I just went ahead to mark my neck width of 3 inches and neck depth of 1.5, which are connected with a curve. Like now I'm getting my armhole curve, which is the same process I did for the front, where I took the midpoint from the armhole depth, mark 0.5 inches by coming in with that, and then I mark the bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line and connected it together. So now on the waist, I mark 0.5 inch, and I'm connecting it towards the top where you have the chest line and towards the hip below. So that is just to help eliminate zipper bulging. Now I mark the bust span divided by 2 from the chest line to the hip line and connected it with a straight line, just like I'm doing so. So after that, I'm going to come to the waist area, and I'm going to be marking 0.75 inches on both sides. Now this 0.75 inch I'm marking, if you're a plus size, you can use 1 inch. Okay, so after doing that, I came down from the waist by 4 inches and I connected them together like this. Okay, I'm just going to extend the lower lines to make it very visible for us to see. So at this point now, I'm going to take the body measurement. Okay, I'm going to mark out the body measurements, dividing them by 4. Okay, so just going to go ahead and impute them. The waist, I'm using 28 inches. The hip, I'm using 39 inches. So dividing them by 4, I'm going to go ahead and mark it. So please take note that in this pattern drafting, we did not add body seam allowance. Okay, so when you are cutting it on your fabric, please ensure to add seam allowance to this. Okay, so please take note of that. And every part you are cutting them in two, because you are going to assume that your material is going to be on, we are assuming that the paper is on fold, but when you're cutting your fabric, ensure you place it on fold so you can cut two. Now we are going to get the hem design, which I just did here. I came from the center back below by 6 inches, and from the waist below the waist by 5 inches and connected them together. Now this is me marking 1 inch from the hem area down to the neck area and connecting them together like this. This is where I will have in my zipper allowance. Okay, the reason why the line is not entirely straight is because it came in by half an inch from the waist area. So now, because it's a princess dart, I'm also going to be doing that here by taking the midpoint of the armhole curve like I did for the front, and I'm marking that midpoint on the armhole curve, which I'm going to be using to connect to the bust pan line. And then after placing my ruler and connecting them together, I'm also going to go ahead and smoothing the sharp areas. Okay, I'm going to make it very smooth so that it does not have any pointy look at that point. So I'm just making it visible for us to see as well. So at this point we are done. I'll just go ahead and cut it. So for your beginner and you want to learn how to go about pattern drafting, how to draft the basic bodies, the sleeve pattern, the skirt pattern. So if you're new to fashion designing and you want to learn, this is an opportunity. It costs 5,000 naira and it's going to commence in May, that is next month. Okay, so now we are going to learn how to get the design for that chest area. So on another folded paper, I put the pattern on it and cut exactly what I have there. You can see that this is exactly what it is. So on it, I'm just going to take my marker and slash them into equal lines like this, and I'm going to draw straight lines across, which after that I'm going to be labeling them and I'm going to be cutting them through. But while I was cutting them, I realized that this other part, that is the part I labeled 3, is quite bigger, so I went ahead to also divide it again and then I cut it out and then label it. So now after doing this, I'm going to take another piece of paper, okay, another piece of paper, and I'm going to be placing them, arranging them equally, leaving a space of about 1 inch. So now the spacing you're going to be leaving for it is totally optional. You can use 1.25, 1.5 depending on how full and wide you want it to be. So I'm just using 1 inch to illustrate this for us, and as you can see, I'm securing it with my pin right now. I'm going to place it properly, and then I'm going to go ahead and secure it with a pin. And after doing that, I'm just going to be leaving about half an inch all round, which I'm going to be I'm going to be using it to join it all through from the fabric, that is to the top of the dress. So after marking that, I'll just go ahead and cut it out. Okay, so mate, so after cutting it out, I'm going to remove the slashed papers that I have there. I'm going to remove the pins and remove the paper, and then the white part of this fabric is what we're going to be using, or what you're going to be cutting on your fabric. So by the time you cut it, you're just going to be pleating it like this, ensuring that what you have at the top and at the down is exactly the same on the pattern. I think for the pattern we use 5 inches, and then it means that you're supposed to be having 10 inches at the top, and then below you're going to be having about 14 inches because we use 7 inches. Okay, so now for that sleeve area, how to get that bell design we have at the lower part of the sleeve, you're just going to take the wrist measurement, of which mine is about 7 inches, divided by 2 is 3.5. I marked 3.5, and I also mark a width of 6 inches because that's how long I want it to be. Then I went ahead to slash it into equal sizes. Then after slashing it, this is what I have. I labeled it, and I took a piece of paper and I went ahead to place them like this. So this is just after you must have drawn your basic sleeve pattern. You can now take the wrist measurement where you want the bell sleeve to start from. Okay, so don't get confused. If you have any question, please leave it in the comment section. So I want you to take note of what I'm doing here. You can see that at the top I'm leaving about half an inch allowance, half an inch spacing for the top area, and from the lower area I left about 0.75. okay, so now you can actually leave about 1 inch below or 1.5 inch below at the lower, that is at the hem area. This is going to depend on how full and wide you want the sleeve to be. Okay, I'm just using this for an illustration. As you can see, after that I added half an inch all through, and I went ahead to cut it out. So by the time you have cut this out and you remove this paper that you've slashed, what you have on the white piece of paper is what you're going to be cutting on your fabric. And then because you're going to be putting gathers at that wrist area, it's going to be looking like this. So you're just going to ensure what you have at the gathers is exactly the size, that is the 7 inches we have marked for this, for the wrist. Okay, so at this point we are done with this tutorial. If you find this helpful, please subscribe to our channel. And like I said, our online classes is going to commence in May. We have a beginner class where you can learn everything about pattern drafting, and then we also have a corset class for those that are interested in corset just to upgrade their skill. So if you're interested in joining our online class, please send a DM or send a message to the WhatsApp number that is displayed on the screen. Thank you guys. See you in my next video.